November, they've decided to bring the date forward. So we've got until the 24th of October to file our tax returns. And in addition to that, admin penalties will be levied if you miss even one tax return.
Really?
Yes.
So the taxman has changed gear. Like he's not playing around.
No, we're not playing.
Are you listening? Are you listening? Because this is going to be very important in a few weeks' time when you're like, Kanene, when did the window close?
Yes.
Oh,
and we think that October is, it's far, but
guys. If you think there's still time left, imagine this. Next week, August ends.
Yeah.
We're left with September, October, November, December. Now, if you think that's 4 months, I'd say it's more like 2.
Yes.
Because of the pace of how the year is traveling.
And the year has just flown by. I mean, just thinking about myself, it seems like a blur. If I look back at...
Just yesterday, you were making plans for what to do in 2022.
Yeah.
Now you're like, wait.
It's over.
Oh, man. What are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about trust. Today's topic is inspired.
No, not infidelity.
Trust, obviously, in the context of our finances.
Yes.
And today's topic is inspired by the month that we are in,
yes.
Women's Month.
Yes.
Sort of to inspire women, because I don't like this term, but yeah, it's a term esetyenziswayo basi apparently. There's a lot writing.
Yeah, I don't like that term either.
No.
Like a rock is pretty dull, eh?
Not even about being dull. It's firm. It takes on a lot of toll,
but it's dull. I think that's my issue.
Yeah.
That's my issue.
So my issue is that you throw stuff at a rock and it will still retain its shape. And unfortunately, the country we're living in with gender-based violence, we tend to be portrayed as Ordo that can take things and take things and take things. So that's why I don't like the term.
Also, a rock doesn't move from where it is.
Yeah. So and I'm not about
there's too many connotations.
Yeah.
But it is Women's Month,
It is
so
Women's
we
Month.
take an uplifting approach to it,
Yes.
and we're dealing with trusts today.
Today we're dealing
There's
with
an S at the end of that. Trusts.
How do we navigate trusts? What are trusts? What are the different types of trusts? The advantages and disadvantages of trusts?
First
And
question
then-
though, why do trusts exist?
Trusts exist for a number of reasons. The first one I would say is to the protection of wealth.
Okay.
So whatever assets, or the protection of assets, whatever assets that you may have accumulated, it is wise to set up a trust in order to protect that, because
So this is what wealthy people have been doing forever.
Yes,
and
indeed.
we are on the 17th of August in the year of our Lord 2022.
The year of our Lord.
Only now having these kind of discussions to show you how generationally we still have a lot of catching up to do.
We definitely do.
Yeah.
So a lot of wealthy people have been doing this for decades.
Right.
And they set up trusts to protect their assets, to protect their wealth, because assets, they live forever. Unfortunately, unlike us, we perish and we leave everything that we've accumulated.
We expire.
We expire. Yeah, we leave everything behind, and if you haven't set up your finances correctly, if you haven't set up a will, the distribution of your assets will then be left to whoever is then appointed as the executor of your estate.
Okay.
So it's taking a hold of that while you're living and managing that. Whatever happens beyond your span of life, and sort of taking control of that. So you can do that to set up a trust, but a trust is not only set up when you die or for after you have died. You can also set up a trust while you live, and today we'll navigate the different types of trusts.
Don't some people live off trusts?
They do.
Okay.
They do.
So that's the living part of
The
it.
living. Yes.
Okay.
So essentially what you can do is you can transfer all of your assets to a trust. And the one advantage of that is that you then don't have any assets to your name, firstly. So any of your creditors, they come after you and they see no assets in your balance sheet. So there's nothing that they can come after because everything belongs to the trust. And a trust is also then a person.
Are we advocating for like tax evasion?
No, definitely not. In fact, we'll touch on that. We'll touch on that.
Okay.
Because it's definitely discouraged for you to set up a trust in order to evade tax.
Okay.
In fact, you might find that it's actually more expensive to operate a trust than it is an individual, because for tax purposes, a trust is taxed at the highest percentage, at 45%.
So you need a bag. Like, don't just open a trust because it sounds cool, guys.
Yeah.
Like, open a trust because you got some real assets.
Yes.
Like, it's not child's play.
It's not child's play.
Okay.
I mean, the setup costs themselves, they're quite onerous, because you obviously need a team of specialists to help you with the setup process.
And evaluating your net worth and all of that.
So you'll need a financial advisor, you may need an accountant or a tax practitioner, you may even need a lawyer, and those guys don't.
Well, you know, if you're at trust level,
Yeah.
you've probably got a team of lawyers on retainer.
Yes.
You've got a lawyer who deals with financial law. You've got, you know, intellectual property lawyer. You've got this. You've got criminal defense. So there's a.
So utilize your team to set up your trust, and then the other cost element is that on an annual basis, a trust will need to draw up financial statements,
Okay.
which you as an individual obviously don't need. But because a trust is not a living person, it will need to draw up financial statements to say, this is my list of assets, this is my list of liabilities,
This is the value.
this is the income, this is the expenses, and this is the profit, and then the profit gets taxed at 45%.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
That's almost half.
Yeah.
Shoo.
So you would need then to consider yourself as an individual, your income stream, because as an individual you get taxed on the sliding scale at a minimum of 18% and then at a maximum of 45%.
Okay.
And then match that against the trust, which will get taxed at a flat rate of 45% and see.
Regardless.
Really, yeah.
Okay.
If it's really worth it. The other disadvantage is that your assets are then controlled by the trustees, which you have appointed.
Oh
So do
no!
you-
So if you have a falling out,
Yeah.
this can turn out to be a really bad decision.
Or you have a change of mind, because remember, you'll draw up the trust document, the trust deed, and you yourself have to abide by that. The trustees have to abide by that.
Sure.
You yourself have to abide by that. So
Can't you add a clause like, and if I don't like it, I'm taking my money. If I don't like it, I'm taking my money. I'm going home.
You can add clauses. You can set up a trust to serve a specific purpose.
Right.
So maybe you set up a trust to serve a purpose, and once the purpose has been served, the trust is dissolved.
Okay.
But yeah, you would also need to consider your personal circumstances as well as the advice of your people. Is that advisable? What are the tax implications? What are the monetary implications? Is it all worth it?
Okay.
And also the other disadvantage is obviously then if you have already accumulated assets in your name
Yeah.
personally, and you then want to transfer them into a trust, that is then a CGT, a capital gains event, because you will have sold
So there's another
a tax on that.
trying to put your money away can be a taxing affair.
It can be a taxing affair. It's
Ooh.
a very expensive exercise.
Ooh.
So you would need to consider that are you going to set up the trust before, and then when you buy your assets, you buy them directly in the name of the trust? Or if you've got assets,
or you buy them
already,
as the trust.
you buy them as the trust.
Okay.
Or if you've got assets already in your personal capacity that you want to move into the trust, you would then need to consider that
Okay.
that is a taxable event.
Sure.
But it's not all bad news.
There is light at the end of the
There
tunnel.
is light. Some advantages of setting up a trust is that because a trust is not a person, so it can live to infinity. So you sort of, I use this very carefully, you sort of escape estate duty.
She even did this. Tax evasion 101 with
It's
Faniswa
tax
Ndungane.
avoidance.
It's sorry.
It's
Tax
a-
over and not deliberately. For the purposes of
Yes.
setting up your trust.
Yes.
See, I'm getting the lingo.
So you can avoid paying estate duty because as an individual, if
Yeah.
you pass on all of these assets to your name, estate duty will be then calculated, and then your deceased estate would have to pay this tax, which is estate duty. But because all of your assets are now sitting in the trust, and the trust is going to live to infinity, then you sort of escape estate duty in that sense.
Okay.
So that is the one advantage.
Avoidance, guys, not evasion, because that's a very deliberate thing. Avoidance is just getting out of taxes way. You know.
Yes. Just fly to.
Greater tax.
Yes.
Greater chan.
The other advantage is something that we touched on earlier, that there is effectively a protection of your assets.
Yeah.
In that your creditors will come at you and they will see that you don't have any assets to your name. So they can't then attach your assets, especially if you've got minor children and dependents who are depending on the assets, then they are sort of protected in that way.
And at least if anything happens to you, whether it's physical or psychological or whatever, there are steps and rules in place for what happens with your beneficiaries.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And then speaking of beneficiaries, you might have a whole list of beneficiaries. So you set up a trust. In the event that you die, your assets get moved into a trust, and these are the
Right.
beneficiaries that benefit from them. Say you've got a list of 5, and it so happens that during the course of time, one of your beneficiaries also passes away. So what would happen is that the trust will then still continue to distribute assets to the remaining beneficiaries.
Okay.
This as opposed to if you had then bequeathed an asset to one particular person and then they pass away, and then it'll depend on then how they set up their will, how the rest of the beneficiaries.
Can you set it up that if they die and you're still alive, it comes back to the trust?
I mean, you can do anything.
Like, listen, while you live, you have full access to it.
Yeah.
But if you go,
It comes back. I mean, you can draft it any which way you want. Yeah, those are the advantages, that if one of your beneficiary dies, at least the remaining beneficiaries would still continue to receive that flow of assets,
Okay.
that flow of income. And then there's also the added advantage that as an individual, when I pass on, the list of my assets needs to be published in the Gazette, so that any creditors can once again come and make their claims. But because the assets are in a trust, then the trust lives to infinity, then your sort of estate, the value of your estate is then.
so you kind of also lock it in time.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then one thing we need to consider, something that we touched on, is not setting up a trust for the purposes of using those tax benefits or anything. Because if for example you have a large sum of money and you decide to make a loan to a trust, it'll probably be interest free or at a very low interest rate.
A loan to a trust.
A loan to a trust, yes.
What kind of trust takes loans?
They do.
See?
They do.
I try to tell you.
The wealthy, they do the things, eh?
Yeah, well, look, the super wealthy buy these yachts, for instance, and they'll tell you, the price, it's a 100-foot yacht, the price is like 330 million. Yes, but they didn't pay that up front.
Yes.
They probably paid a deposit, like how you do for a vehicle.
Yeah.
And they charter these things out most of the time, because how often are you actually like 2 weeks in a year that you're on that yacht? But what I've realized also is that they go and register these from these little tax haven nations. In the Caribbean, there's some, Switzerland, etc., etc. But they do that because the laws are very flimsy, that side, and then they put all of that whole yacht and that whole situation under a trust.
Yes.
So that if anything were to go wrong with whatever risky behavior they're taking with their money, they can't come and say, well, we'll take the yacht then. You're like, no, you won't. Not the yacht.
The yacht? A yacht? Me? I don't have a yacht.
Who told you that? Yacht. Look, don't look at this castle that I live in. I mean, this used to be my father's place.
Yes.
But yacht? Nah. Not me. Little old me with a yacht. I mean, I've been on one or two. As for ownership.
I don't have that kind of money.
All right.
So what one may do is they may make a loan to a trust.
Right.
The benefit there would be that the trust is then taking this loan and generating income for the distribution of the income to the beneficiaries, but in turn the trust pays little to no interest to the owner of the trust. So that is one of the examples where SARS will then step in to say, listen, the going interest rate is this percentage, you were supposed to charge interest to this effect, and in event what's happening is that you've donated the interest to the trust, and then you will then be liable for a donations tax.
Because the tax man ain't playing.
No.
Guys, like, listen, I've seen all of this before.
Yes.
Let's do this. You're gonna pay it anyway.
Yeah.
One way or the other.
One way or the other.
So do it voluntarily. Don't be that guy.
Yeah. And then just lastly, to touch on some different types of trusts. So as we've mentioned, you can speak to your lawyer to set up a trust so that it comes into effect once you've passed on.
Right.
So that would be called a testamentary trust. The purpose of a testamentary trust is to manage the distribution of your assets to your minor children and any dependents that you may have had that would still need to sort of benefit from you in your absence.
Okay.
And then two types of trust that you can set up while you are still alive is one called an inter vivos trust, which would then protect your wealth from your creditors.
And you live on some kind of budget, like.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in a month, maybe it gives you like $500,000 rand. You're like, but this sucks. What am I gonna do with this? Half a bar, really, Dad?
So yes, that would be to the protection of your wealth, and then the other one that you can set up while you are still alive is called a settlement trust.
Okay.
And that would be set up to sort of receive any proceeds from the divorce settlements. So instead of coming directly to you, they go to the trust and then be distributed to the persons that would need to excuse me, to receive those proceeds, and also proceeds from a life insurance policy as well.
So trusts are an important part of the process, especially when you get to a certain level of accumulation of wealth.
Yes.
Okay. Is it important to have a trust?
I would say it's very important, especially if you've got minor children. I mean, these days,
anything can happen.
anything can happen.
This is South Africa.
This is South Africa, and was it just yesterday or 2 days ago where we heard of Tukulo who had an epileptic attack and he passed on.
A day before that, PK got shot. Yesterday, another member of the Kwaito group, Kumshev, also died. Like people are basically what we are saying is that anything can happen at any given time, and you don't have to be sick, you don't have to be elderly.
Yes,
it can happen.
It can happen.
Okay.
So definitely, I would say if you've got the resources and if you've got minor children, you've got dependents, that's definitely something to speak to a financial advisor about.
How long does it take to set up a trust?
I'm actually not sure, but I can't imagine that it takes up that much time.
It's a paperwork process.
It's paperwork,
Okay.
and then you would file all of that to the Master of the High Court.
Okay, okay. Well, there you have it. Facts about tax with Faniswa Ndungane. And today, talking about trusts with an S. Because it's important.
Yeah.
And it's inspirational and aspirational.
Yes.
Get yourself to a point where you start thinking about protecting your assets. Because, you know, it's like, hey, I'm not doing too badly. I'm not doing too badly myself. I think maybe I need trust. Can you only have one trust?
I stand corrected, but no, I don't think it can be limited.
So some of for purposes is Tile.
Yes,
Okay,
yes. Because
okay.
you can set up a trust for a specific purpose, and then once that purpose is served, you dissolve the trust. You can set up a trust, move certain assets to one trust, and move certain other assets to another trust. And
Can you set up a trust for a trust?
I don't think so.
Like I'm protecting the money that I'm protecting.
I don't think so. But I know one of your trustees don't necessarily need to be individuals. You can have a business or a PTY Ltd company be one of your trustees as well.
Like a creche.
Yes.
Oh man, listen, 3 minutes before 12 o'clock, we're coming in between 12 and 3 with the invasion, and between 3 and 6 p.m. LT and Miss Lelu with Let's Just Drive. Funny, so thank you so much. How do they get in touch with you if they want to set up a trust or get the information that they need to do so?
They can call me on 061-874-2546 or via email info@thetaxcafe.co.za. On all social media platforms, you'll find me at The Tax Cafe.
There it is. Listen, we've got to get out of here. It's been lovely. Catch you next week.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And keep up the trust. Listen, you could have been anywhere between 9 and 12. This is